The Alter Rebbe passed away on this day, 24th of Teves. He lived to be only 68 years old, very short life. However, the Alter Rebbe's life was anything if but uneventful. So we're going to discuss over here several stories and several Torahs from the Alter Rebbe. Of course, the Alter Rebbe is the one who founded Hasidus Chabad Hasidus. The Hasidus began 2 generations before the Alter Rebbe by the Rebbe Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, at the age of 36, was instructed by his teachers, his godly, his saintly teachers, who were teaching him Torah. He has to reveal himself to all Jewish people and to inspire the Jews in a new way of learning Torah. The Baal Shem Tov, through his students and he himself through his journeys, met Jews in small towns, big cities, big scholars, simple folk. And as the Frierdiker Rebbe says, 3/4 of the entire Jewish nation was affected directly during the times of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid Mizrich, were affected by the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and his students of Hasidus, of the entire Jewish population.
Including Arab lands.
That's what he says. I mean, including Arab lands. Sephardim were actually a very small percentage of the Jewish people about that time. They went down from about, I think, 25% to about 10% of the Jewish population. That's a different topic. And the Alter Rebbe came along as a unique neshama with a special mission to start what's called Hasidus Chabad. Chabad means Chachma Bina Das, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Not enough to merely understand, to do the mitzvahs with excitement, but you have to do it with every limb and being of your body, including your wisdom and knowledge, to understand Hashem. And that in turn, the more you learn Chassidus, you understand godly concepts. That in turn will give you excitement in serving Hashem, because the more you connect yourself to something, the more excited you get about it. There's a shliach in California. His name is Rabbi Brisky, and he gives a weekly parsha, say Shiur class. They usually gain about 1 participant a month. It's in a boardroom, a very exclusive law firm. At the end of every single class, Shiur, he offers, was anybody like to come put on tefillin? And every week he has 2 or 3 people after the Shiur who would put on tefillin. And they're going through the Chumash slowly, by topic mainly, not so much to cover ground in the Chumash, to go through topic by topic. And when they came to Chumash Shemais, where it goes through, where the Torah talks about tefillin, so he went through all the halachas, the laws of tefillin, and the reasons of tefillin, and the ideas of tefillin. And after this year, he mentioned anybody would like to buy a pair of tefillin. 15 men signed up to buy tefillin. And anyone wanted to put on, every single man who was part of the Shiur put on tefillin. What was the difference? Because they all worked on it. They felt it was theirs. It wasn't something being told to them by somebody else, but they spent a few weeks learning and understanding and learning the sources. And now they felt that it belonged to them, and now it's their mitzvah. Hashem is not an abstract thing, but it's something very real. Hashem is real and Hashem is practical. And the more we learn Hasidus Chabad, we understand as much as we could understand. It becomes ours. We own it. We are personally connected. And this is what the Alter Rebbe came and brought Hasidus Chabad to the world. Another idea of Chabad Hasidus is to have a foretaste of what will it be like when Mashiach comes. So Mashiach's coming very, very soon. We're going to have a new type of Torah learning that we never had before. Hasidus Chabad introduces godly concepts, spiritual concepts, similar to what the Torah of Mashiach will be. In addition to that, the deeper and the longer we are progressing in galus, in exile, the harder and the darker it gets. We have concealments of godliness. We've never had such a thing in history, where the vast majority of the Jewish people is very unknowledgeable, most of them not through their own fault, and Yiddishkeit and Torah and mitzvahs. It's not that there's such an antagonism today against Torah mitzvahs as much as an ignorance. If people are against it, it's because it's something foreign to them, not because it's something they have ideologically against Yiddishkeit, Frumkeit, Torah, mitzvahs, Hashem. It's more of an ignorance than it is of anything else. And to have such an idea, and that's in one aspect, the world itself is covering over godliness in a very strong way. And the tsaras, the hardships, we had the Holocaust, and we had many other hardships, pogroms in Russia for the whole 1800s, and it's not over till today, as unfortunately the extremely tragic stories on October 7th we've seen in Eretz Yisrael and all over the world. So we need some light encouragement. So the darker it gets, the more you have to take out the big guns. What's the big guns? Chassidus. To encourage Jews and to teach Yidden about Torah and mitzvahs. And this is what the Alter Rebbe, his main thing as a founder of Chassidus Chabad Chassidus, taking the ideas of the Baal Shem Tov and bringing it down to every single thing, every single person. So we're going to discuss one or two excerpts from different Sfarim of the Alter Rebbe, particularly Tanya. We'll discuss a little bit the story of how the Alter Rebbe passed away and how does it apply to us in a spiritual sense, how well we could learn from it, and in a physical sense, what we could accomplish on this day. The Alter Rebbe passed away. It was a Motzei Shabbos. He made Havdalah, very clear, very lucid. He made Havdalah, and he said he's going to pass away that night. He passed away about 10:30 p.m.
We knew he was going to pass away?
Correct. He became, when Napoleon invaded Russia, the Alter Rebbe said that he cannot live under Napoleon because Napoleon is his spiritually, although physically he's bad. In a physical sense, he wasn't anti-Semitic like the Russian czars. He wasn't putting out the Rebbe, arresting him over and over like the Russian czars. But he was a much more dangerous foe for the Jewish people than the czars ever were. It's much more dangerous, an enemy who comes to you with a stick, with a carrot, as an enemy who comes to you with a stick. An enemy comes to you with a stick, you know he's not hiding his colors. An enemy comes to you with a carrot is much more dangerous. The quiet ones are the ones. Napoleon's idea was emancipation, throw down the ghettos in Italy. He closed them for good. He even made a Jewish Sanhedrin with rabbis who were keeping the Torah, but rabbis who were not knowledgeable in the Torah. They put them there as well. His main idea was you got to assimilate, come with the times, become friendly, put the Jews in big positions, and that the Jews will eventually assimilate. And the idea of emancipation, throw off all the old yokes, throw off all the old things you're being told by the patriarchy, the hierarchy, whatever you want to call it, the clergy, throw it all off. We're now in a new time where everyone does what they want. And no one can tell you what to do, except for me, as I am the emperor. That was Napoleon, and the Alter Rebbe fought against them in a spiritual sense, in a physical sense. No, Napoleon was also a little bit of a sorcerer.
He got sick from traveling.
Right. So when Napoleon came, the Alter Rebbe fled from Napoleon, and Alter Rebbe has several of his Chassidim who were actually spies in Napoleon's camp. A famous story for another time of Moshe Meislish, who was a spy. in Napoleon's camp. Napoleon accused him of being a spy, and he said, "Oh, Chassidus saved him." He was able to control his emotions. Napoleon burst into the room, accused him of being a spy, and Napoleon put his hand on his heart, and he said, and he stayed calm. He didn't get nervous. Napoleon said, "Okay, you're not a spy." A spy, as soon as he's cut, his heart would have started pounding. And he said, "How could I stay calm?" Was because he learned Chassidus. The Aleph base of Chassidus is the first thing he learned when he came to the Alter Rebbe was your mind has to control the heart. So always be in control of your emotions. And he worked on that for 10 years. So therefore, he never got nervous. And he told Napoleon, "I'm a translator employed by the army." And he managed to save several Russian forts. And in a spiritual sense, Alter Rebbe had his own disagreement with other great tzaddikim, students of the Maggid, who thought Napoleon would be good for the Jews. Alter Rebbe says Napoleon is good for the Jews physically, not spiritually. Now, the Alter Rebbe, when Napoleon came, escaped from Napoleon. He said, although the Tsar will be terrible for the Jews in a physical sense, as it was after the entire 19th century, it was tremendous persecutions of the Jewish people in Russia, probably unparalleled as a century per se, in a collective way, throughout many centuries of Jewish history. But in a spiritual sense, Yiddishkeit in Russia blossomed, unlike, you could say, in Germany, where the Enlightenment took over immensely the entire young generation. Rabbi Shamshon Fall Hirsch managed to come and, revive Yiddishkeit there. Berlin, in Austria, in Hungary, many, many places where Judaism, the Enlightenment, became very powerful, unfortunately. However, in Russia, Yiddishkeit, the Russian Empire, which included Poland, which included Ukraine, included parts of Hungary, where the Yiddishkeit was blossoming. Chassidus were blossoming. Chassidim all over. It took about another century for all the Enlightenment and the isms, communisms and socialisms to work their way in. But the vast majority, over 95% of Jews in the Russian Empire, kept Torah mitzvahs strongly. The Jews who ran away to America, unfortunately, assimilation was very strong, and the Jews in many other areas. It's all to do with the Alter Rebbe. He ran away from Napoleon, and it was during that journey where the Alter Rebbe actually passed away. He passed away in a town called Vienna. The Kiddush cup, the becher, which the Alter Rebbe used that Motzei Shabbos to make Havdalah, was still kept, and even traces of the wine, which dried up, were still in that Kiddush cup. And the Rebbe's always had it, and they would never use it. There's one time someone helping in the house, a woman, but didn't know what it was, and she washed it out, and the Rebbes were not too happy with that. Oh, the Rebbeim, the Rebbe at that time, I think was the Rebbe Rashab, was very unhappy. Now let's learn an excerpt from Tanya. Tanya, of course, is, you could say, the monumental work of Chassidus, of the Alter Rebbe. Much to learn and much to say about Tanya, from the Tanya.
Was any reason he was buried in Haditch?
Haditch, yes, we'll get to that.
When he was in one town, it must have been very close to each other, right?
Actually, it was not so close. It was pretty far. So we'll learn a little part from Tanya. The Alter Rebbe, to go through everything the Alter Rebbe did that we know of, we'll take at least another whole shiur. Plus, the Alter Rebbe said, interestingly, all the things that he did, Koil Chabad is just one thing, raising money for the students of the Maggid, the Chassidim in Eretz Yisrael, supporting them. But the Alter Rebbe said his biggest schus, the biggest merit that he had, more than anything else, teaching Chassidus to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of Chassidim, writing all the svarim that he had, the letters, raising money for tzedakah, being arrested twice for Chassidus, everything else that the Alter Rebbe did, the Chedarim, the teachings that he had, pales in comparison to the one thing, his biggest chus, he said, biggest merit, was that he brought many Jews to do teshuvah. Baalei Tshuva, that he made the merit, the biggest schus that he had is making Baalei Tshuva. Returnees to Yiddishkeit, people who return to Hashem. That was his biggest merit of all. There's a dream that the Mittel Rebbe, the Alter, the Tzemach Tzedek, the dream the Mittel Rebbe had about where there was, not to get into all the details, but one detail of the dream, we saw the Baal Shem Tov and the Magnim is rich. They walked onto a plank of wood that was over like from a dock, and one of the planks of wood, they walked out, and the plank was very shaky. And the Alter Rebbe walked on it, and the plank was not shaky. And when he asked Alter Rebbe about this dream, what does it mean? Does it mean something? And he explained to him about the Baal Shem Tov and the Magnim is rich. They established Chassidus, but it wasn't set. It wasn't solid yet. It was Alter Rebbe who made it solid. And he says, what schus, what merit was the board, the plank not shaking, was because he says the water is mayim as a dainim, the waters which threatened to drown a Jew's fire, excitement about Yiddishkeit. And the reason why it was not shaky was the schus that I had of making many Baalei Tshuva, bringing Jews back to Yiddishkeit with all their hearts. So look what it says. Alter Rebbe himself writes, he quotes a Zohar. The Magnim is rich, the second leader of Hasidim, and you can say the last leader was unequivocal leader of all Hasidim. Before it split up into many different streams from the different students of the Magid, was the Magid of Mizrich's, after he passed away, the 19th of Kislev, his son, Rebbe, which was named Rebbe Avram, was called Avram Malach. He was a very spiritually ascetic person, and he was the leader for only a very short time. And he passed away several years after the Magnim is rich, but he said that he didn't have the power, the means to really be a leader. And other students of the Magid also said that we need a leader, not a malach, a person, not a malach, not an angel, someone who's intensely spiritual. And the Alter Rebbe, they came to the Alter Rebbe, all the students of the Magid, although being the youngest, they asked him, could you become our leader of Chassidim? And he said no. And he himself went to a different student of the Magid called Rabbi Nachum Mendel of Haradak, one of the elder students of the Magid is rich, tremendous tzaddik, going Baal Priya Aretz, and he went to him to be a talmid by him, a student by him. Right. And Rabbi Nachum Mendel of Haradak had tremendous persecutions, and he eventually, after 3 years, he moved to Eretz Yisrael. He moved to Israel. And Alter Rebbe wanted to go with him to Eretz Yisrael. In the middle, he turned back because the Baal Priya Aretz, the Rabbi Nachum Mendel of Haradak, continuously was telling the Alter Rebbe, your mission is to stay in Russia, in white Russia. Your mission is to introduce Chassidus to the places of the biggest opposition of Chassidus. Rabbi Nachum Mendel of Haradak. And he told him, the Magnim is rich, told me the source of your neshama, of your soul, where it comes from in the higher worlds. And your soul is so lofty and great, greater than any other students of the Magid. It's a neshama chadasha, a new soul from Atzilus. Usually souls are recycled. It's called Gilgul. They come down again because you have a special mission to do. And over, till eventually the Alter Rebbe in Mogilov turned away and he went back to Russia. And that's when he developed Chassidus Chabad. You know what year that was? 1776. 76. Same year that the country, that the U.S. was founded. Correct. In the same year.
Where was he at that time?
In White Russia, in Mogilov. And so the Alter Rebbe came back to establish Chassidus Chabad, but he continuously supported Reb Menachem Mendel of Haradak and Reb Avram Kalisker, the students of the Magid Mizrich, in Eretz Yisrael. And it's interesting. Koil Chabad is a very active tzedakah till today. They do tremendous work and tzedakah in the Holy Land till today. Talking about tens of millions of dollars a year that they give out to anybody in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel. And it comes directly from the Alter Rebbe. When the Alter Rebbe was arrested, part of the accusations were that you're sending money to the Turkish government who ruled Eretz Yisrael, who ruled Israel. Many of the Chabad Hasidim who are in Eretz Yisrael, or in Israel, from the times of the Alter Rebbe, generations of the Alter Rebbe, the Chabad Hasidim, but they wear strimal and levush, the garment of the other Hasidim, because at that point, that's what the Hasidim of the Alter Rebbe wore as well. Only after the Alter Rebbe's times, the Hasidim changed from out of a strimal. The Chabad Hasidim. So once Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Haradak passed away, the Alter Rebbe sent a letter from Liadi, and he sent it to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel, to the Chassidim there, to comfort them after the passing of Menachem Mendel of Haradak. He had three names. One of them was Mendel Vitebsker, Menachem Mendel Minsker, and Menachem Mendel of Haradak, based on three different cities he was at different times, discussing the idea of a tzaddik after their passing is more accessible in this world than they were before their passing. And Chassidim, those who are connected to the tzaddik, can receive from the tzaddik both spiritually and physically, even more than during the lifetime of the tzaddik. Being as a tzaddik's life is spiritual, it's not a physical life. Until now, the tzaddik was limited in the body. After he passed away, his whole life, spiritual life, he's no longer limited. Therefore, when they learn Torah, connecting themselves to the tzaddik, it could reveal deeper levels in Torah. Here, the Alter Rebbe writes something very unique, what the passing of a tzaddik does. It says that when a tzaddik passes away, it atones for the generation, sort of like the red heifer, the cows of the ashes of the red heifer, the para aduma. Now, ayidei ha'aras tikun neitzer chesed v'tiras, and when a tzaddik passes away, is revealed, all the good they did throughout their entire life comes together at once. All the mitzvahs, all the shemas, all the b'shmina esrei, everything it did during their life comes together in one day. And therefore, you have such a powerful godliness being revealed at once. Meir chesed Hashem me'olam ad olam ha'yireyav. The kindness of Hashem radiates from the world of concealment down to the world of revelation, to those who fear Hashem. Upoyel Yeshua's bekerev haaretz, quoting a pasuk, and causes salvations in the world, and lechaper al avan adar, and it atones for the sins of the generations. Even the most severe sins a person does are atoned by the passing of a tzaddik, in a way even greater than any of the korbanos, any of the sacrifices in the Beis Hamikdash. So it's Poyel Yeshua's bekerev haaretz. It causes salvations in the land, and the words are mizgala umeir. It shines and it's revealed this godliness down here in this world when a tzaddik passes away. So when a person thinks about everything the Alter Rebbe did for all generations, he himself describes what is a passing of a tzaddik, and he passed away in a very clear mind on Matzah Shabbos. He even wrote there's two letters that Alter Rebbe wrote on that Matzah Shabbos. One of them is printed in Tanya. You could say the deepest part of Tanya, called the Geras HaKodesh Chof, Epistle 20. He wrote it during that week, and he finished it that Matzah Shabbos. And a letter called Nefesh Eshrela, two of the deepest teachings of the Alter Rebbe. Throughout the Alter Rebbe's Mamarim, a lot of things you read is Chachma, the wisdom of Hashem. Alter Rebbe over there, Epistle 20, V'Geras HaKodesh, Iu V'Chayui, the Nefesh Eshrela talks about how by doing a mitzvah in this world, you're bringing Atzmus, the essence of Hashem. Doesn't speak about levels, but he goes all the way to the Atzmus, the essence of Hashem. Where does it bring it down to? Bekerev haaretz. We had it last week's parsha. Yaakov gave a blessing to Ephraim and Menashe. V'yidgu l'roiv bekerev haaretz. May you be multiplied like fish in the land. What's bekerev in the land? Aretz is the lowest part of, it means land, which is the lowest from the earth is the lowest of all the elements. Kerev means inside, the lowest part of the land, which is Egypt. And he gave, and Yaakov gave a blessing to Ephraim and Menashe, sons of Yosef, the Yidgumi, be fruitful and multiply in the land, in the midst of the land, even in Egypt, which is the lowest of all the lands. It was very depraved and immoral land. So you bring Pa'ulas, Hoil Yeshuas, you bring salvations on such a day, the Kerev Aretz, even in the lowest part of the land, even in the darkest part of exile, a day of the Alter Rebbe's passing. Everything that happens on a certain day is redone the next year, only in a stronger manner. Every single person has their own times, where sometimes a person could be intellectual. For example, let's say you're davening or you're learning. If you're learning Torah, great. If you're reading the paper, let's say, or other things like that, where your mind is thinking. Some people, when they're davening, their mind wanders. A person could think of themselves, where was I a few years ago? And you see how Hashem is running the world. Look at all over the world. And you could also think to yourself how Hashem is making miracles on an ongoing basis. Davening is when you serve Hashem. But it's easier to serve Hashem intellectually, learn Torah, understand what's right. Even emotionally, to have a feeling towards Hashem. Anybody ever tells you I'm a Jew at heart? You ever heard that? What does it mean I'm a Jew at heart? I'm a Jew at heart, meaning they have the feeling might be in the right place, maybe intellectually, but the maisa, the action, is the hardest. The hands, right? That's the hardest part. Some people even do the right actions, but they do the actions without any connection to it. And doing it because they sort of feel like they have a part to play in a play or something, but they do it without any feeling. Even such a person, a day of Teves, when Alter Rebbe is Stalkos, Poil Yeshuas could lift up the person, even in their actions. Because the essence of every Jew is Ma'amin. Deep down, we're all believers. And when a person acts in a certain manner, you could eventually, with time, bring out the essence. What the belief is, it comes out as an effect of all their actions they're doing all the time. So even if a person says, it's better to give tzedakah, even if you have all the wrong intentions, and you were doing for all the wrong reasons, better to give tzedakah. You shouldn't wait to give tzedakah until you have the right kavanah. Why should the poor person be cold and be hungry until you have the right kavanas? When it comes to the actions, we do the actions, even if we don't completely feel it or understand it, or we're holding at that point yet. But to bring out that idea that it's going to be good, and the good should have an effect, it's effective on such a day in a very special manner. Hashem made the plagues in Egypt, 10 plagues. And Hashem gave a reason. Why did he make the 10 plagues? You know why? What's the reason given in the Torah? Leman teidu ki ani Hashem b'kerev haaretz. The Egyptians should know that I am God. They know? What do you mean? They tell them. But there has to be a revelation of Hashem, even among the Egyptians. The Egyptians shouldn't just hear about it, they should actually know it. And the only way to teach them a lesson, they weren't ready to listen to Moshe Rabbeinu talk to them. So Hashem had to teach them a lesson the hard way, and had got 10 plagues. And the same thing, Hashem, if a person, God forbid, has a hardship, and unfortunately, all of us have our own hardships in our own lives, and unfortunately, the Jewish nation is going through very big hardships. But within the hardships, we could find the good, which will eventually bring out the Poyel Yeshuas B'Karev Haaretz. Even in the lowest part of the land, it will be good, as Hashem promises, "Nesati Shalim Ba'aretz," and I will put peace in the land of Arab Israel. And I will make you stand up. When a person is downtrodden, they're sad, they're hunched over. When they're happy, when they go with Kemes Kufa, they go with a pride. It's a special day today, which is not just for the great chassidim, the great leaders. It's not just for the great intellectuals, but it's a special day that every single Jew could connect to the idea of the Alter Rebbe to be Poel Yeshuas. Ask what you want from Hashem on a day like today. Try pushing ourselves to go a little bit further. Poel Yeshuas b'karev haaretz. And on a day like today, Hashem gives a tremendous bracha and tremendous power. And we just go positively, go with in a very happy, tall way. Hashem will definitely help every single Jew. Now, to just conclude with a short anecdote, very short anecdote about the Alter Rebbe. There was one time the Alter Rebbe was invited to a wedding. And the Alter Rebbe asked at the wedding, tell me, how come you invite a rabbi to the wedding? I understand you bring a batchen. Batchen's like an entertainer to the wedding to make them happy. But why do you bring a rabbi to the wedding? A rav? What does a rav got to do at the wedding? Everyone was quiet. No one knew what the answer was. So the Alter Rebbe says, I will tell you why. Because a rabbi is someone who asks about all the details that are going on. He wants to know all the details. Then the Alter Rebbe called over the Kala, the bride, and asked her, tell me, did your first husband have a brother? How did the Alter Rebbe know she was married? A brother. And how did the Alter Rebbe know she was married first? He was just invited to the wedding. Obviously, it's a miracle. He uses Ruach HaKodesh, his divine prophecy. And she said, yes. He had a brother who was a young child when we got married to my first husband. The Alter Rebbe says, before you get married, you have to do a chalitza ceremony, because if a woman passes away without children, a husband passes away without children, to do a chalitza to the older brother, biblically has to marry the widow. And here in this case, nowadays we don't do that. We do instead chalitza with the shoe to separate, between the brother of the man who passed away and the widow. So Alter Rebbe says, first do chalitza before the wedding could be done. And some say this was the first miracle that Alter Rebbe ever showed in public. Alter Rebbe one time said, when about the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid Mizrich, he says when he lifted his hand, he says he would lift with it all the higher worlds, all the ilmas. When you bring the hand down, he would bring down godliness into the worlds. So the idea of it's a special day, Poel Yeshuas b'karev haaretz, but I think we'll pause over here for today. And Hashem, we should only have simchas and Yeshuas and refuas